Yo, what's up everybody? How's it going? We've been playing a lot of Atomic War here. I mean, I've been grinding way too much of it. I'm currently rank 40 or something like that, kind of up there in the top 40s, right? And I see a lot of people asking me, hey Baumi, what's a good build? You know, like what should I be going for? And well, that's this video. So what we did is we put together a little top 5 of the strongest builds. Now, when I say the strongest builds, I don't mean the strongest heroes. I don't mean the most consistent builds. I mean the strongest ones. The things that might take free abilities to make work and might need your hero to be a high level and might need your hero to have a lot of items, but then they are really strong, right? That's what I'm talking about here. Now, that doesn't apply for all of the builds, but it does apply for some of them. Now, if we were to make a list of the most consistent builds, that would be a different list. But generally speaking, in Atomic War, you always have time and space to make one of your heroes really nuts and really, really powerful, right? And this is about that one hero. Although if you get lucky, you can get multiple of them. Anyway. So we're going to have a look at this. The way we set this up is basically we took a bunch of clips from my stream, we edited it together, and now I'm going to be speaking over it as I watch it, and then we're going to, edit that together again in post. And that's why we are not going to have any in-game audio, just in case you're wondering. Anyway, let's get into it then. Alright, so our first build here is Jerk Spirit. It's kind of a funny name, don't worry, we'll get to why we call this the Jerk Spirit in a little bit. But it's Storm Spirit with the W replaced with Aftershock. Aftershock, of course, being Earthshaker's passive. What this does is it lets Storm Spirit zip around and stun things with his Q and his ultimate. Now, this is really powerful in Storm Spirit for a multitude of reasons. First of all, Storm Spirit is really difficult to catch, right? Like, he's fast, he zips around a lot, he's got usually pretty, nice tanking items, like the items you want to put on a Storm Spirit tend to give him a lot of HP, ideally a BKB, and he messes with the AI of the bots, which is great. Right? That's fantastic. That means he's not going to be very likely to be attacked, which means that Storm Spirit tends to survive until the end of the fight, giving him a lot of opportunity to throw out stuns. But on top of that, the AI actually kind of understands how to use Aftershock. So Storm Spirit tends to zip in and then plays the Q really nicely, doing a lot of damage, and then also just zip again immediately with his ultimate. Now, he only zips again immediately if you also replace his E. So if you get the opportunity, you can replace the Storm Spirit E with Fleshy. That is ideal, because then he builds up a lot of strength and becomes really beefy, right? It's not needed, but if you don't do that, then Storm Spirit is very likely to spend some time attacking, which is something we actually don't want, right? We don't want him to be attacking at all. The more he's casting, the better, because that's just a really effective way of getting a lot of these stuns out. Aftershock is also buffed in Atomic War. It deals more damage than it does in normal Dota, which is pretty damn nice, right? Like, that's fantastic for us. Now, a Storm Spirit in particular is very good with the Crystal Maiden Summoner. So if you want to play this with a specific summoner, if you get the opportunity, do it with Crystal Maiden, because Crystal Maiden gives Storm Spirit way more mana than he would normally have. It makes him very powerful even without Aftershock. And then on top of that, of course, you get a shield whenever you cast something, which is also very good. So that's really nice. In terms of items, you're looking for anything that's low cooldown. No, not low cooldown. It reduces his cooldown, so we got a Spell Prism and Octarine Core. In these clips, I have multiple Spell Prisms on the Storm Spirit. That's because you used to be able to stack them and stack the cooldown reduction. That doesn't work anymore, but you don't need to do that. Right, that's actually not necessary. You just get one Spell Prism and an Octarine Core on the guy. He's already gonna be able to perma-stun people easily. And especially, you want to give him a Bloodstone or something like that. Anyway, you can see Storm Spirit just zipping around here. Even when he gets stunned, it's not that big of a deal, right? Because he's in the back lines. He's zipping around the place. Whenever he gets hit, yeah, sure, he's gonna take some damage for a little while, but it's not actually gonna be that significant. Another really nice thing about Storm Spirit is that he scales really nicely, right? He's got fantastic level 30 talents. So getting him to that high level is just freaking powerful. Now, here's why he's called Jerk Spirit. As you can see, sometimes he doesn't want to do anything. So you can see that Storm Spirit is just kind of hanging out, not casting anything. We kind of called this build the Jerk Spirit Because sometimes Storm Spirit just wants to wait until he can 1 versus 5 people and then kill them. He just doesn't do anything at moments, which is a bit frustrating. We think that's because the Storm Spirit waits until he can sit behind something, but we're not entirely sure. But anyway, that's kind of a risk with the build. And that's why I personally don't like using it that much. Because while it is incredibly powerful, it is a little inconsistent. And you're just going to have to deal and live with the fact that sometimes Storm Spirit just turns into a jerk and stops casting anything. And it's just, it's a little annoying. But despite the annoyance, that doesn't undo the fact that it's very powerful. Anyway, number 4, Ogre Magi. Now, this next build is going to be a little bit difficult to really properly keep track of. So try to pay close attention to the Ogre Magi, but also try to pay close attention to what the units that the Ogre Magi is fighting would usually be doing. And I know that gets a little bit complicated, but basically, this is a support build. It's the only support build on the list. I guess depending. I don't know if you count the Dazzle we're going to get to in a second. But what we're doing here with Ogre Magi is we are putting Fatal Bonds on him. We are putting Burrow Strike on him. So you can see here, Burrow Strike can be multicast, and then it actually burrows to multiple enemies, meaning it kind of acts like this weird angular fissure, right? Like it curves to hit everything that's in the path, which is really, really nice and very powerful. But while that is super strong and really goes a long way, that's not it. Because you can also get Fatal Bonds on Ogre Magi, right? And then you multicast the Fatal Bonds. And Fatal Bonds is a huge increase in damage, which enables your team. And that's what this is. This is a build that enables your team. Now, this is something about Ogre Magi in general. Ogre Magi is super flexible. I love Ogre Magi because you can pick up Ogre Magi and just put anything you want on him. Right? The best build, I think, is Fatal Bonds and Burrow Strike. But if you want to put, like the Bristleback abilities, Nasal Goo and Quill Spray on him, and then he can actually do a lot of damage and apply a ton of minus armor, right? Or if you want to just put Storm Hammer on him, he can stun a lot. These builds are incredibly flexible, right? So right here, for example, you can see I have Decay, which is also nice, right? Because it just like makes him beefy, although he did just kind of die there. Still, you always have to keep in mind, well, even though the hero dies, his role isn't necessarily to be that crazy frontliner. His role is to make sure that your team can do its damage. And that's what you need to be looking for, right? You need to be looking out for what does the support do for your team, and how much does the support need. Ogre Magi doesn't need that much, and he does so freaking much. Here again, you will see that Ogre Magi does just kind of die, but not after having disabled the 2 most important units on the enemy team for the entire fight. And then it's just a 4 versus 2, at which point we easily clean it up, right? That is something that is incredibly valuable, and it's something where I really think Ogre Magi excels. In particular, also just Fatal Bonds is very good, and the ability to have multiple Fatal Bonds on your opponents is crazy good, right? So I really like Ogre Magi because of his flexibility, and this particular build with Fatal Bonds, Burrow Strike, I think is just incredibly powerful because it is such a strong support build where if you want to put an Aghanims on him so that the Burrow Strike has more range and you get the additional Fire Blast, then fantastic, but you don't have to. Right? If you want to give him even more items, then you can do that. Hexing the entire enemy team is a possibility. You can Abyssal Blade the entire enemy team. That's a possibility. Right? These are all very strong effects, but you don't have to do them. If you need to focus on the rest of your team instead, then you can do that instead. And that's just really, oh man, that makes Ogre Magi incredible. So I really like this hero. I think Ogre Magi is incredibly powerful. And yes, he is a support. Yes, you're not going to see him get the maximum amount of gold, maximum amount of damage, but he's still going to be effective. Now, this is where we get to one of my favorite heroes to couple with Ogre Magi, actually, Dazzle. Now, this build is a little bit wild. So we have Blink Dagger on Dazzle, Rage, Aftershock, and then a very low cooldown ability. My favorite is Vicious Nasal Goo, but you can do it with other stuff. You can do it with Chain Lightning, you can do it with Quill Spray, you can do it with the Skywrath Q, the little birds that fly out. You can use any of those. You just need something that's a really low cooldown. You need the Dazzle to be level 18, and then ideally, you need 1 spell person, But ideally, you get an Octarine core as well, right? Just lower the cooldown of the Dazzle's abilities as much as possible. What this does is the Dazzle will have permanent rage. Blink in, stun everything, which is great. But just generally, you can see here, this is a clip where I actually don't have those other abilities yet. I just went for some other stuff. Aftershock on Dazzle, because of the low cooldown, means he's able to throw out a lot of stuns again, right? And it turns out throwing out a lot of stuns is incredibly powerful. Right? Here you can see now we have Vicious Nasal Goo. So Vicious Nasal Goo has such a low cooldown that now our opponents are actually getting perma-stunned if they are near us. They can't interact with us anymore. Now what's really important about this is that while Dazzle is perma-stunning them, he's also reducing everybody's armor like crazy, right? It makes it so that your entire team does tremendous amounts of damage, because you're cutting the enemy's armor away into nothing. Nasal Goo reduces the armor, and every time you cast, the Dazzle ultimate also continues to reduce armor. And that's really like a great way of going about making sure that your team can take them down. I love Dazzle as a hero in general. I think he doesn't even need this much support, but if you can get him all of this stuff, then he can beat anyone. He can beat the strongest carries. The reason why this build isn't higher on the list is that it is a little inconsistent, because it does require so many freaking pieces. And even when you get all of the pieces, sometimes you just get killed by an enemy with a BKB, right? Like, that can still just happen. Now, the fact that you need a lot of pieces isn't really as much a criteria, like not really a problem for this list. But the fact that you can't just get killed by somebody with a BKB is a problem, right? So you can see here the Dazzle again just kind of takes somebody down, then blinks on top of the next unit. Blink Dagger is actually essential for this build because it makes it so that the Dazzle positions himself on top of the enemies, making it so that the Aftershock actually connects with them. In a few of these clips, you saw Dazzle kind of like casting a lot, but not actually being on top of the enemies. This is what the Blink Dagger fixes, right? That way we actually get the Aftershock on everybody, and it's very powerful. It does require a lot of stuff though, which is always a little bit of a problem, right? So again, kind of try and pay attention to what the Dazzle is doing with the positioning. Up at the top, currently perma-stunning 2 units, right? Is now gonna just take these down, blinks down, and is now, wait, I actually lost track of him. Did he die? I think he died. It doesn't matter. We won the fight. Yeah, he blinked down into the bottom, but then actually ended up getting killed. So you can see here what items I have on the Dazzle. It's a Blink Dagger and the Spell Prism. Spell Prism is actually necessary because a level 18 Dazzle only has permanent rage, permanent magic immunity if you have a Spell Prism. Without the Spell Prism, it's actually not enough cooldown reduction. With the Spell Prism, it is. So that's why I think the Spell Prism is actually like a core component of this build and is really something that you need. Admittedly, it's not that hard to get, but it is something that you want. Anyway, we're getting to Tom. This is the fan favorite build. This is the build everybody loves. What is Tom? Well, Tom at its core is really more of a concept. It's really more of a lifestyle. No, so Tom is Phantom Assassin with Rage and Aghanim's. Now, right here I'm using Fervor. You can use Essence Shift to replace Phantom Strike. Phantom Strike is kind of a flex spot there, right? So you can put Essence Shift there, Fervor, you can put Slaughter Bash there, right? Time Lock. Or you can just keep Phantom Strike. Phantom Strike is actually a good ability for this and works perfectly well. What's the idea behind this build? Well, Phantom Assassin's Aghanim's makes it so that whenever she gets a kill, her abilities reset their cooldown. Now, what this is usually used for is for Phantom Strike and Dagger, which aren't great abilities. But you can use that for Rage. Rage has a 7-second duration. Turns out Phantom Assassin does a lot of damage, and Phantom Assassin is easily able to get a kill within 7 seconds. Which means you can see here, with Aghanim's, she immediately re-rages and can start chasing down whoever is next. And whenever she gets a kill, she just rages again, making it so that she continues chasing down the enemy team. This build is so powerful that very frequently it just 1 versus 5 entire teams. Like it just straight up 1 versus 5s the entire enemy team. It's also great because it uses Phantom Assassin, which Phantom Assassin has great stats. And most importantly, in Atomic War, they actually swapped one of Phantom Assassin's talents with the Blur ability around. Because what Blur does is it gives you 50% evasion in normal Dota, right? And then Phantom Assassin has a talent that gives you a plus 30% evasion. They actually changed that around. In Atomic War, Bluric is 30% evasion, but Phantom Assassin has a talent that gives you 50% additional evasion, which makes it so that only if as Phantom Assassin do you actually get 80% evasion. Now it turns out, if you have 80% evasion and permanent magic immunity, the hero becomes impossible to take down. Like, she just doesn't die, right? Like, she just doesn't go down. Then couple that with the fact that Coup de Grace is just an incredible ability. And then you couple that with the fact that Phantom Assassin is a great hero with fantastic stats. And you end up with a guy, with a hero that honestly just overwhelms entire enemy teams. So, now, why is it not number one then if it's so strong? Well, because it has one weakness, and that is getting permabashed, right? It can definitely get overwhelmed by an enemy carry that's got a lot of specifically has a Slaughter Bash, right? You can get permabashed. That can be a problem. Admittedly, it's not that big of a problem. This build is incredibly powerful. Whenever I get the opportunity to go for it, I do go for it because it is just so consistent and it is so strong that you really don't need to worry so much about it. Fun fact, you may also notice that this build actually counters the Dazzle, right? It's another reason why Dazzle's a bit lower, because this build is actually a good counter to the Dazzle, which makes the Dazzle life a little bit more difficult. At the same time, they're also very good when paired with each other, because the Dazzle reduces the armor of everybody, which makes it easier for the Phantom Assassin to get kills. And as I mentioned, it is actually important that the Phantom Assassin gets kills, because that resets the rage, and that's the whole point. We just want her to be very, very mad. But so this is a build that honestly I would recommend you go for 100% of the time. If you see you have Phantom Assassin and Lifestealer in the pool, you go for Phantom Assassin, you go for Lifestealer. You go for Phantom Assassin, you pick up a Rage along the way. Honestly speaking, Phantom Assassin is just a good unit on her own, and Rage is not that difficult to find, especially if you're only going for one. Number one. Now, it says Drow Ranger here. Is actually a bit of a lie. So number one is really less of a specific hero, and it's more of a concept, and that is Slaughter Bash with Essence Shift. Now, in the short history of Atomic War, this build has repeatedly been nerfed. At first, it was mostly abused on Medusa, then they nerfed it on Medusa. Then it was mostly abused on Drow Ranger, which is when we recorded all of this footage, right? So then they nerfed it on Drow Ranger, right? And I can promise you, next up is gonna be Clinks, and then they are going to nerf Clinks. What is the build here? Well, it's simple. Essence Shift is a great ability. It builds up attack speed, right? Builds up agility, builds up attack speed, you attack very quickly. Slaughter Bash is a broken ability. If you have enough attack speed, you permabash people. In particular, this is great if you have a hero like Drow Ranger, because Drow Ranger can get multiple attacks out with every attack, making it so she's building up Essence Shift quicker, making it so that she takes things down even faster. Now, I'm still going to show Drow Ranger here for this, right? We're still showing Drow Ranger here for this, because Drow Ranger is still incredible for it. It's just incredibly powerful on the hero. What is the ideal build then? You want to get Essence Shift, Slaughter Bash. If you want to, you can substitute Slaughter Bash for Time Lock, but Slaughter Bash is better. And then something that gives you attack range, and of course you keep her ultimate. So you can use Take Aim, or you can use Arctic Burn. They're both fine. Drow Ranger wants Aghanim's anyway. You want the Aghanims, so she has a higher, she attacks multiple targets at once. Again, this was something that was nerfed recently, which, is a little bit annoying because we were already nearly done with the video. But anyway, it doesn't really change too much because you can still do this build. It's going to be a little less effective, but that doesn't mean it's not one of the, well, in my opinion, the most powerful build, right? It does require quite a bit of support. It requires the hero to be high level. It requires the hero to have a lot of items, right, so that they can actually do damage. But once you get them there, your opponent can't interact anymore. That's the big thing. You cannot interact with Slaughter Bash. Slaughter Bash is a permastun. And it's not just a permastun, but it's a guaranteed permastun. You can't BKB it. You can't even really Aeon Disc it, because you're just going to get stunned again. If you have enough attack speed, Slaughter Bash will just overpower anything. And that's exactly what we are abusing here. Right? Now, you can do this build on Slog. You can do it on melee carries. So you can even do it on Phantom Assassin if you want, right? You can do it on a whole bunch of heroes. I like it on Lifestealer because Lifestealer comes with Rage, and you just put Essence Shift and Slaughter Bash on the guy. Keep Feast and Rage around is pretty strong. As I mentioned, Drow Ranger can do it. Medusa can still do it even despite the nerf. You can do it on Clinks. Pretty much anyone, and you're gonna do fine. Drow Ranger is still, again, very consistent, so if you want to do a Drow Ranger, go right ahead and do it on Drow Ranger. But, yeah. Now, in particular on Drow Ranger, you don't even necessarily need Essence Shift. Essence Shift is great when you get it, but even just having Slaughter Bash and just, you know, attacking and doing a ton of damage is great. Drow Ranger can also utilize lightnings very effectively, which will allow her to just do a ton of damage, right? When the attacks bounce and then lightnings trigger everything, it's kind of crazy. On top of that, with Drow Ranger, of course, as she gets more powerful, you could have a secondary carry doing the same thing, or even just another secondary carry, ideally a ranged one, because then they also get the marksmanship bonus, right? And you just kind of overwhelm them. The one weakness this build has is getting jumped by assassins, which can be a problem, right? In fact, the best counter to the Drow Ranger doing it is a non-Drow Ranger hero doing it, like a Slog, jumping on her, perma-stunning her down, right? Which is generally like a great way of doing it, but it also makes it so that, you know, if the best counter to a build is the build, I think you understand why I decided to rank it first, right? Like, does that make sense? I think that seems sensible enough. So right there, you could see it's just a level 10 Drow Ranger still overwhelming people, right? Because it is just so difficult to interact with her. Right here, for example, what I did is I didn't find Bash, so I just went for Blur instead, which is actually kind of a fun little effect. It makes her like a bit hidden. You can see that up in the top left corner, there's a silencer also using Blur. But anyway, that's gonna be that. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope this helps. All right. I hope I could guide you through your Atomic War journey a little bit. The game is a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. And yeah, I wanted to kind of like put something together like this. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a rating on it. I would definitely appreciate that. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.